What is happening, Internet fam? So I am testing out Linux Mint Beta 20, the Mate edition. Just came out literally a couple of hours ago. It popped up on one of the FTP servers that I monitor, and I was able to go and grab it off the internet and install it really quickly on this machine. This is an older machine. It's a decent little machine. It's got 8 gigabytes of RAM, slightly upgraded video card. Nothing fancy though, like $40 video card. I haven't got all my lighting and everything set up. All I've done so far is install OBS and HTOP. This is the OBS program here, and this is HTOP over here. That's all I have done. This is a stock Mint 20 Mate Beta install. So I'm just going to go through a few things on the system and maybe make a few configurations and kind of show you what the new Mate 20 is like. This is the beta release, so maybe we'll see some bugs. Maybe we won't. Who knows? So this is the Linux Mint welcome screen. If you've never done Linux Mint before, if you've never done Linux before, if you're moving from Windows or Mac, I do recommend you go through and read all this. For me, I've been using Linux for a long time now, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. This is the default desktop here. I find that that's a little bit boring, so I'm going to open up the background screen. Now, this is one of the criticisms I've had for Mint for a long time. When you try to open and change the back screen, or the background, it really takes a minute to come through. It looks like they got some new backgrounds. Let's see what these look like. Once this dialog opens, everything seems to work pretty well. But until you do, so it seems like there's a few new nice ones in here. Interesting. I don't know if I'm crazy about any of them, but well, that one's pretty nice, I guess. I kind of like that one too. Yeah, these may grow on me. I don't know. I kind of like that one. I'll probably change it to something custom later myself anyway, so not to worry about. For me, my eyesight isn't perfect, so I like to bump up the fonts a little bit. I like to just put everything up 2 notches. I wish there was an option to turn all of them up 2 notches so that would just be a little bit easier and faster. But sadly, there is not, so we have to go through and change all of them by hand here. And that's going to obviously change the way that HTOP looks over here. Yep, bigger font now, a little bit different now. So there's that. Still getting 30 FPS, using 30% CPU, still recording, looks good. This is the Mint Start menu down here in the bottom left corner. And by default, these are the favorites. Some of these favorites I've always kind of not liked that much. I'm not a big fan of actually most of these apps. It's interesting too. I have a custom video card in here, and I wasn't able to find any drivers. That was one thing I wanted to do too in the driver manager. Say, hey, is there a new driver that will make my video performance a little better, especially because I do a lot of stuff in OBS, Blender, etc. And it's saying your computer does not need any additional drivers. So what's weird about that is that means that over in OBS, I can't configure it to use the video card's encoding capabilities, which is one of the reasons I bought this upgraded video card. So that's just something to think about. I'm going to have to do a little bit more research into that. Anyway, back to Mint. So this is the default layout. It always says computer and your home folder, and this is a large hard drive that I have in here where I store a lot of data and files. Once again, this is the start menu. It comes with Firefox right out of the box. Firefox is pretty trusty and reliable. Good old browser. It does not come with uBlock installed by default, which I find a little bit annoying. And also, it's also difficult to switch to the Google search engine in the taskbar relatively easy. Not that it really matters though, because I don't use Firefox. I usually use Brave or some kind of weird other browser. If you go to all applications, you'll see that you've got all the kind of standards, calculator, right? All kinds of regular Office tools. Disks, manage drives and media. This is kind of a new interesting program that I haven't played with too much. Looks like it's a little bit like Gparted, and it looks like you can do editing to disks like you would in Gparted, so that's interesting. I'll have to take that for a test drive at some point. bunch of other basic tasks. This is a big one right here, Warpinator. This is an exciting new one here. Let's see if it sees my other computer, because I'm running in the other room. I've got, or in one of my other office rooms, I've got 19.3 running with an early version of Warpinator, and it is not seeing this one. What's interesting though is I was in there earlier when I was doing the live install, and the other one did see this one, and I did make the same group key and all that. So Warpinator, new product, not working for me currently. So that's one of the things that's supposed to be exciting. A lot of cool hex chat is great, love that. Transmission, I much prefer QBitTorrent to that one. Office, all the Libre Office stuff. Libre Office, I'm a big fan of. Since I've never opened these before, probably take a second to open the first time. But yeah, and you're going to get these tips. I'm going to turn off the tips because I don't need that. Do I want to learn what's new? No, that's fine. I am a big fan of Libre Office. Great word processor. So, and it comes, built in out of the box. Don't save. And it's not just the word processor, but you also get a really good Excel replacement, and even like a PowerPoint. I think that's the Impress is like their PowerPoint kind of thing, and Draw, which I really good for making flowcharts, stuff like that. Now, by default, it came with celluloid, and it did not come with VLC. Because I installed OBS, I believe it installed VLC by default after that. Rhythmbox, again, a kind of bloated music player that's not one of my favorites. I usually install Audacious. Let's see, and then System Tools. I installed HTOP. I like HTOP. It's a little bit more efficient than System Monitor, although System Monitor seems to work well. And then Timeshift is a really good backup utility. So pretty bare bones, but overall everything works. Very easy to use. This is the control center. So let's go in here. We already went to the driver manager, and it did not show me the driver for my video card. So I may not be getting quite as good of performance in OBS as I would have hoped. I'm going to have to look up the model number of that and kind of do some stuff on that later. I also did run updates and do a reboot before I started this video. So so there's that. Compiz config right in the look and feel. So that's very interesting. That means we can switch to Compiz right away. Desktop settings. There's stuff I like to do in here. I like to get rid of all these icons. I don't find that they are super helpful, especially when I can get to them from down here in the start menu. So I like to keep my desktop a little bit clean. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Compiz and see how that goes. Here we are in Compiz. Although I don't see a window option there. Yeah, there's no configure Compiz. There's no this is interesting. Yeah, here's a warning for CC7, but you see how I'm missing all the tops of my windows. This is often happens in no matter what version of Linux I'm using. When I enable Compiz by default, it doesn't know to turn on the window decoration stuff. So, which I think is this thing, right? Is there another one I need to do somewhere in here? I could spend a lot of time configuring Compiz. I'm a big Compiz fan as well. But let's go back, see Marco. See, now we've got the tops of our windows back. If I go back to Compiz, the tops of the windows are gone. So we do reset the settings. Does not aid us in there. If we go back in here, no, don't ever do that. Wonder where we could. I'm sure there's a way to fix it somewhere in here, but I just don't know where. Window decoration, you would think would do it. See, FirePaint's one I use. Enable OpenGL, enable Composite. Oh, hey, ta-da! We've got window tops. Exciting. Can I FirePaint? I can FirePaint. Look at that. So that's one of the things that I do in Compiz. We can also do 3D windows, enable desktop cube, and let's also enable rotate cube. So now, can I change screens? Oh, I only have one screen made. So again, this is one of those things where there's so many settings that are wrong in here by default on initial install that it's going to take me a while to fix it and actually make it work. I mean, all of these should be enabled by default, these ones I'm turning on. Another one I like to use a lot is the, I guess we could turn on mate compatibility, why not? And then another one I like to do a lot is the enhanced desktop zoom. And let's see, again, not at all working because there's no default zoom in for that. So again, and these are things that should be done by default. So let's enable the zoom in. I like to do Shift, Super, and then mouse scroll wheel up, which I believe is button 4 by default generally. And then let's do the zoom out button. Let's do Shift, Super, button 5, which I believe is zoom out. Okay. And now we can zoom in and zoom out. Now this is something that has broken a lot for me in the past, but at the moment it seems to be working. Really helpful for when I'm doing demos like this. Let's see, so how many desktops? So for some reason I can't do the desktop cube, probably because there's only one desktop right now. So, and that's something that we can change in here as well, I believe. Or is it one of the other menus? Somewhere in here. Workaround, scale, add-ons, resize, info, regex, window management. Oh, can I move the windows? I can't move the windows. So obviously I'm going to need that. So here's move windows. Hey, look, now I can move windows. Very useful. See, again, these should be done by default. So this is a beta. I'm going to get in there and complain again about that. We're going to enable text, enable workspace naming, viewports. But where do we make sure that we add more viewports? Because again, by default, I only have one viewport. Not all that useful. I'll probably turn some of these other ones on too at some point. Some of these things that help you make it so that the window will snap to other locations, like so they'll snap next to each other so you can put things side by side. It's in here somewhere. Snapping windows, here we go. Now with the snapping windows, I can should be able to snap them next to each other and stop. I don't know, apparently maybe that's not working. So another issue with the beta here. Again, I'm just totally going quick as possible on this thing and doing this all live on a brand new thing. So this is kind of how I bumble around every time I install a new version of Linux. And it's just one of those things where I wish these things worked out of the box properly. And it's something I've talked with the team about a lot in the past. Yeah, this is nice. So you can make things kind of transparent with this thing enabled, and we can still zoom in. So that's great. But we need to have more desktops, which I don't think is in here. So let's go figure out where that's at. Desktop settings. That does not help us get the extra desktops to make the desktop cube work, so we'll have to get to that later. Let's get into appearance for a minute. The new fancy one is Mint Y. So what's interesting is Mint Y Dark seems to be better than Mint Y Darker as far as actually making the windows darker, which is weird. So they're kind of misnit labeled. That's how they were in the past. Yeah, like if I click on Mint Y Darker, everything is still the super light gray in here. But if I do Mint Y Dark, kind of prefer the silver color. Where's Mint Y Dark with the silver? Mint Y Dark brown. Is there no Mint Y Dark silver? Oh, Mint Y Dark gray. There we go. See, now everything's dark. So why is this one labeled dark and this one labeled darker? That's just one of those things where it's like, that should be a very easy fix. But now we've got kind of a darker theme, which I prefer. I usually customize this panel as well down here. One thing you can do really quickly is just kind of use that Alt scroll wheel and scroll over it, and then Compiz and kind of make it see-through, which I always like to do. I also always put it in 12-hour time, which generally in every version of Mint Mate I've used so far usually leads to some kind of breakage. Usually I don't need the date. I know what date it is. So there's that. So we're getting things cleaned up and set up here. Where is it that I get the 4 desktops at? That's really bothering me. Let me go find that and I'll be right back. Okay, so apparently the way to get additional workspaces is by adding the workspace switcher to the panel. and then going in there, which is something I've figured out before, but it's been a little while. So, okay, so now we got the workspace switcher down here, and now we can do preferences, and we can add some workspaces. We want 4 and 1 row. That's good. And so now we have 4 workspaces, and now maybe the desktop cube still isn't working. All right, well, let's get back into Compiz then. Okay, so apparently the place to get the additional workspaces is in here, desktop size, and now maybe the rotate cube will start to work. And there it does, and it's working. Excellent. So now we've got the Compiz cube going. Again, all of this should be set up by default. I've told the Mint team several times, and actually the last release, they did include some of these settings and make them work better. This is great that I can zoom in and zoom out. So let's do some other Compiz settings. For one, I like to zoom out a little bit more when I'm rotating. So let's go fix that now that we've finally discovered general options. See, that's how desktop size. How would I have ever found that without Googling it? Yes, I Googled it while I was on pause there. So anyway, let's do rotate cube. Let's do the zoom. I don't remember exactly how this works, but let's go 0.5 and see what that looks like. 0.5, enter. That zooms out quite a bit. I like that. Let's also look in desktop cube and play around with transparent cube. One of the things you can do is make the cube transparent while you're rotating. And so you can set that to like, so during rotation, you could say your transparency would be like maybe 20%. We'll say 20%, and non-rotating, let's go, when I'm not rotating, let's make it like 50% transparent. And boom, now you can see through the cube and see what's on the other desktops. I find this working like this very useful. Once I get to this point though, I don't really want the background anymore to be an actual backdrop anymore. So I'm going to change it to just solid color, because then I think that looks a little bit cleaner when you're going through. Now, that isn't to say you can't have a nice image for a background. What I like to do is make the image a skybox, right? So, and you can do that here by adding just a custom gradient, or you can actually go and pick an image. So I'm going to go ahead and pick an image really quick from my old hard drive. And let's do the blue canvas. See what that looks like as a skybox. Enable PNG, correct. And now I've got like kind of a blue canvas that I can work off of in the background. You know what? That's kind of low res. So I'm going to have to make higher res ones, obviously. Let's do black canvas. That's pretty low res too. I know some of these are higher res. I think the dark red canvas was higher res. Yeah, let's do that one. A little bit washed out. Guess we could make it just nice. Let's make the top black, or is that the bottom? No, that's going to be the bottom. So let's make the bottom like a purple color. Let's make the top like a black color, like a twilight kind of looking. It's kind of nice looking. But look at this banding and the gradients here. Now, is that because I don't have the right video drivers? Because I couldn't find it? Because my card wasn't listed? Is it because my colors are too far away? Let's do a custom color. Let's do like a darker purple here. Do that one. There we go. Now the banding is a little bit less obvious, at least. So again, these are all kind of configurations that have taken me quite a while in the past, and they'll probably take me a while this time. Let's do the background. Let's do a solid color. Let's make it black. Select. And again, let's make that pretty transparent. All right, so we're getting to where this is kind of like one of my default desktop setups that I would use a lot, kind of looking like this. So I think we're pretty much done with Compiz, although, let's see, where's the appearance? Yeah, so I like to make the top cubes totally transparent. Select, and the bottom one. Select, so now the top and the bottom of the cube are opaque. You can see right through them, which is how I like it. And then also on Rotate Cube, you can do snap to top face and snap to bottom face. So you can do things like this, leave it in this crazy mode for when you get up and leave. Now there's other things I would do in Compiz too, like speed things up and clean things up. But this is kind of like a good basic Compiz setting. And now you know how to do it if you need to do it manually. You can do a lot more stuff in there, but that is kind of how I like to work. So let's get these on separate desktops. So this is the OBS. This is what I'm using to record right now. And this is a terminal running HTOP. So, but I don't like the default theme here for this terminal. So I'm going to go ahead and change that up a little bit. It's going to be in profile preferences. There we go. And I'm going to change this to be, instead of this, I'm going to do text color, a light gray color, select, and background color, like a black, select. And I'm also going to go make the background transparent, like 50%. Why not? And now when I run HTOP, I'm going to be able to see through that, and I can have this kind of be its own thing everywhere it goes. So, and I'm using quite a bit of CPU, but hardly any RAM. So that's good to know. Let's see what other settings we got in here. Customize the firewall. I like the default screensaver that just goes to black after like 5 minutes. That's cool. Most everything works really well out of the box with Mint. That's one of the reasons why I set so many clients and family members and other people up with Mint, because it's just a lot easier to use. So let's go back into sound and video. See, so graphics, it's weird to me that they don't install the GIMP by default. So let's open up the software manager and see what that looks like. Relatively faster to load that cache. That's kind of nice. Let's see if we install Blender, which version is it? Blender version 2.82. Oh, so that's one of the newer ones. So that's actually really great. So we'll go ahead and install Blender. So continue to that. I got to put in your root password because you are making changes to the software system. Okay, so that's installing. Let's definitely get the GIMP to use the heck out of the GIMP. Now that the GIMP isn't included by default, they may want to add that into that favorites there, because the GIMP is just something that most people are going to install right off the bat. Let's see. Wine install has been tricky in the past, so let's go ahead and do a quick test on the Wine install since we are beta testing here. We'll be able to provide this feedback to the developers. And once again, we are still recording. The video is now 22 minutes, a bit long, but we're doing a lot of stuff. And I'm only getting, what is that, 13 FPS? I mean, that's pretty bad. And again, I think that's because it's not recognizing my video card drivers. So Wine, Blender, GIMP. What are some other really popular ones? I mean, all of these top ones are popular for sure. Let's go and see what the games selection looks like. It's weird that they would put Wine in games. Not really a game. I had a friend who played Westnoth that said it was super fun. I haven't played a lot of these though. Unfortunately, there's still not a really good open source Civilization 2 clone. There's FreeCiv and a few other ones, but they're just not as good as Civilization 2, I don't think, as far as gameplay goes. Let's see, are there any emulators right out of the bat in the default selection here? Not seeing any. I guess we could look for some though. This here is like a space shooter game, and it has the Chromium logo, so there's that. There's kind of a lot of little oddities that could really be cleaned up as far as like Scorch 3D is a great one. I would definitely have that higher in the list. I don't know how they're determining what this list is. Is it just straight up popularity contest or what? But these could definitely be better games could be listed at the top. That would be something that people would actually want to play a little bit more. Super Tux Kart's a good choice, I guess. Some of these other ones are good too, but it's just DOSBox. There's emulator. So what do we got for emulators in here? Do we have BSNES? No BSNES. Well, that's a bummer. What do we got? We got ZSNES. No ZSNES. We got Huygen. We do have Huygen. What? Right out of the box, we can do Huygen? That is pretty great. This is a really great emulator if you haven't played with this one before. So I'll go ahead and install that because it doesn't take a lot of room anyway. One of my other favorite games that I do is Brutal Chess, which I don't think has been updated in forever. And what is this icon? That can't be the Brutal Chess icon. So there's something wrong there. Maybe they haven't finished uploading all the icons yet for this new beta. But Brutal Chess is a great game. Let's go ahead and launch it so you can see what that looks like. I mean, this computer seems to be running pretty well. I mean, I guess we're going to have to see what the recording looks like. We're at, 7 FPS right now. I just don't have that much going on. I mean, I got the Compiz cube and I got a chess game here going, but other than that, I don't have that much going on. And yet, I'm getting some lag action, and that's got to be down to not having the right drivers there. So, I mean, I'm actually getting CPU limited somehow. What's using all the CPU? OBS is using quite a bit. Looks like OBS is really using a lot of CPU. What is this other thing here? Yeah, I don't know. This is not just running that great. You know, I think I had, even with a complex Compiz setup, running a lot better under Dev1. So if you haven't messed with Dev1 before, you should really check it out. It's basically what Debian used to be, but without systemd or a lot of the other choices. Debian kind of went down a dark path there for a minute. And so I definitely am a bigger fan of Dev1 than Debian at this point. A lot of good stuff in here. One of the other things that I always install is, let's see, we got audio stuff, sound and video. There's a bunch of things I always install. I always install Audacity. I use that for doing a lot of audio editing. It's a very handy tool, very powerful tool. K3B I find is definitely the best CD burning tool. So that's something I'm definitely going to install, even though it's kind of like a GNOME-based thing. Audacious, my favorite audio player. And so I'm definitely going to install that too, right off the bat. And again, if you look at this list, you can kind of see what people want. And it's weird to me that Mint doesn't default to some of these ones rather than the ones that they're defaulting to, such as Rhythmbox, which I would just as soon uninstall, which maybe I'll do here in a moment, but I'll definitely remove it from favorites. Thunderbird, I hardly ever use. Their little image viewer thing I use, but usually when I double click on a picture, I don't need a shortcut to it in the favorites. System Monitor, I don't use because, again, I prefer HTOP because it's much more efficient and reliable, and I don't know, it doesn't take up as much resources to run that. Let's see, what else do we got here? Text editor, I'll leave. Terminal, I have a shortcut for, so I'm going to remove that one. If you do alternate Control T, that should bring a terminal right up usually. That does not bring a terminal up. Okay, so we're missing some shortcuts too. That's something I think you can do. Displays, I don't change displays that often, so that's another one that I just don't have in my favorites. I don't need it there. There are some things that I do put in my favorites though. Let's see. Where are we at there? Graphics, definitely the GNU is going to go in my favorites. And debating a hex chat. Definitely Libre Office Writer is going to go in my favorites. Now that Audacious is there, I guess I'll put that in my favorites. K3B I'll put in my favorites. OBS I'll put in my favorites. And VLC or Celluloid. Celluloid actually works pretty good, but I'd still definitely prefer VLC for most stuff. But I don't put it in my favorites because usually if I'm going to watch a video in VLC, I'm going to double click the video and it's going to happen automatically. So, no, we were talking about changing something. Like here's the interesting thing too. Why isn't there a good black theme out of the box? Seems like of all the things there should be, it's like a really good like dark black. I mean, some people like the black theme. And why isn't there a good, like, all the way black theme? If you go down to Appearance and go in the themes here, you've got all these, you've got all these options for, oh, look, I can't resize the window. Oh, is that because I haven't set resize up in Compiz? See, the little things like this, like, those should be set up out of the box. So if you want to use Compiz, it's just usable right out of the gate. Like, it's not that hard to set up, but if I was setting this computer up for somebody who didn't know, like my mom or, somebody like that, I wouldn't just be like, oh yeah, just, you're good to go. No, I'd have to go through and install and tweak all of this every single time. And that's very annoying. I'll say that. So let's go back into Compiz because we can't resize Windows right now. So where's the control center? Oh, here it is, Compiz Settings Manager. Let's go back down to where we made it so we can move Windows and say, okay, now we can resize Windows. Hey, look at us go. We can resize Windows now. I'm sure that I'm going to have to enable some of these other ones at some point as well, but I don't remember off the top of my head which ones. So here we go. I am stoked though that the zoom is working, and I am stoked that the desktop cube and everything else is working now that I've done all these tweaks. So that is great. Let's go ahead and close that. Close that. Yeah, why isn't there a black theme in here? So you got the dark, you got the dark gray, and I mean, the fact that darker is less dark than dark is really annoying. And then the fact you've got all these weird like silvers with all these different colors, that's fine. But I mean, why isn't there a black? There's no black. I mean, we've got this dark gray kind of, but there should be some kind of black in there. I don't know. Am I crazy? You let me know in the comments. Okay, so we've got some things installed now. Other things I'd install, I'd probably install from the terminal. Oh yeah, there's no terminal shortcuts. So let's go see where we can do that. I think that's in the controls. Oh, keyboard shortcuts. There we go. Now again, this is another thing that should just be default. Alternate Control T should launch the terminal. That's like a very standard, old school thing. It's not here, so we'll do browse applications. Find our terminal. Okay, it's not the mate terminal. We're not doing telnet. Did you see terminal in there? Did I miss it somewhere? Again, this is for another thing that should have been set up out of the box, clearly, and is not. So that's view all applications, maybe. What do we call it in Mint? I mean, here's a shortcut to it right here, right? What is that though? Terminal help about mate terminal. Okay, mate terminal it is. So where is mate terminal? LM. I don't see it. I don't see it anywhere. So that's annoying. So I happen to know what it is. It's mate terminal, right? So what's the command for mate terminal? Is it mate-terminal? Apparently it is, because that brought up another terminal. So again, these are kind of things that I know because I've been doing Linux for a long time. But you would think that these would be set up by default, and you think when you hit browse application that it would come up with it, all that kind of stuff. So now we've got a custom shortcut, and we want to make, okay, we're going to call that mate terminal. Hit apply, and then to edit a shortcut, double click on the corresponding row and type a new key combination or press backspace to clear. All right, we're going to do alternate Control T. So now alternate Control T brings up the terminal as it should have before I did all that. So again, highly customizable, configurable, but most of this should have been done out of the box. I'll see. This is all great. This is all set up properly right out of the box. Let's see what System Reports has to say at this point. Now that we've done some installs and messed some stuff around. Nothing to say there. Yeah, so it seems like, oh, Marco crashed. Interesting. OBS crashed. Huh, interesting. I don't remember OBS crashing, but I do remember the Marco crash when I was switching to Compiz. So I've got a usable system here, and I've got like half the stuff that I'm going to use installed now. I don't know why I'm only getting 14 or 19 FPS. Probably because I don't have the right software drivers for this graphics card. And then when I add myself, my frame rate drops even lower. You can see here I'm getting, what is that? 9 frames a second or something. That's just not good enough. And look how laggy my camera is. Well, you can't tell because you're not here with me, but it's very laggy the way that camera is set up, and it'll be more laggy once I get bigger. And I have a green screen. I don't have the lighting set up and all that stuff, so I could make this all a lot better probably. But OBS takes a lot of configuration. It's kind of a more advanced tool. Definitely OBS isn't something I'm going to be setting up, family members, cousins, coworkers who are not IT guys up with, or gals. There's some IT gals out there. Bunch of little odd issues. This is a beta version. Hopefully this video provides some feedback for the Mate team so that they can actually set up a working Compiz setup out of the box. That's something I've been fighting for with Mint for more than 10 years now. Yeah, 2010 I think is the first time I was asking Mint, hey, why can't we have a great Compiz setup right out of the box? And it works. You can make it work. Mint itself has always been great for me. Super stable, super reliable. It's a little bit, seeing like I prefer this to be black, not gray. How do I make this black? I don't know. I do it in here, preferences, appearance, theme, desktop theme. So I can pick all these random themes, but I can't just say black. And also there is no black. If you look at the Mint Y, dark, darker, dark, all these different colors, there's no black on there. Mint team, help me out with the black. Oh, you guys aren't seeing what I'm seeing now because I'm on a different mode. Yeah, so here I am trying to look at the start menu and see how I could change this to black, and I can't. All I can do is pick from existing desktop themes, none of which have a black. Anyway, yeah, Linux Mint, Mate, beta, Mint 20, Mate version, beta. I'm going to play around with it. I'm going to continue to beta test it. I'm going to give my feedback to the team. Hopefully we have a better working Compiz setup out of the box, because most people who I think are hip enough to realize they want Mate instead of Cinnamon are probably going to be hip enough to know that they're going to want some kind of Compiz setup that's actually usable right out of the box. And so again, I'm going to submit this. We'll see how it goes. I'm getting really poor frame rate. Maybe they'll get the drivers working, so that won't be an issue. Although I'm not too worried about it because I've been using Devwan all week and been very, very happy with Devwan. Other than the fact that I'm using a very old version of OBS. Apparently you can compile OBS from source and get a newer version in Devwan as well. So I'll probably play with that later this week. If I figure that out, I'll share that with you as well, because I'm a nerd and I share stuff, technology stuff on my channel. So, all right, Internet fam, hope you're having a good one, and take it easy.